Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss how David Frost thinks he can get around the consequences of the Northern Ireland Protocol that he negotiated and now thinks is a load of rubbish. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So yes, I know David Frost and others keep saying that the protocol isn't working, that he was a bit dim and didn't quite understand the consequences of the international treaty that he negotiated, Boris Johnson signed, and they say it should just be dropped because he and the rest of the government were too thick to understand what they were signing up to. But in reality, he knows this is not happening. The government threatened to suspend the protocol all the time. They've been doing it for months, but they won't actually do it. Firstly, they understand that they can't. For all this nonsense about, Article 16 lets us do this, no, it doesn't. Secondly, because it would be too humiliating for them to be told by a British court to reapply it. They're not worried about international legal proceedings, they take forever. But no, they'd be told by a British court, actually this is a matter of British law, you will apply it. The last thing they want to do is for a court to judge on the matter, because then their lies and bluffs collapse into nothingness. At the moment, the way things are going, they can try and say that they can trigger Article 16. They can try and say that the protocol is not working and needs to be removed. And no one will really call them out on it. But they let it go to court, and that's a different matter. So the government needs an actual plan, and they know it. There have been reports recently that the EU are coming to the conclusion that Boris Johnson only agreed to the protocol so that he could get Brexit over the line without any intention of following through with it. Well, duh, said the UK-based commentators who knew this all along. But it's potentially a bit more nuanced than that. The implication is that Boris Johnson intended to drop the protocol altogether and replace it with nothing at all. Now, you can't rule this out because he has no legal understanding, but surely he would have been advised on the legal implications of treaties he was agreeing to. Yes, I get that he doesn't do detail or listen to too many experts, but he surely would have been told that he wouldn't just be able to drop the protocol. So what if the plan was less to just drop the protocol altogether and more to get it agreed quickly so that Brexit didn't drag on for more years, because of course he couldn't possibly have survived that, but then spend those years anyway renegotiating it by stealth? Yes, a renegotiation is always more difficult because the other side have their treaty in black and white, and if they don't like what you're offering to change it with, they don't have to. They're not legally compelled to change a single word in it if they don't want to. But that's where the political compulsion comes in, because Boris Johnson denies all the downsides of the protocol so that when they hit, he can just say, well, this shouldn't be. No, this isn't what I promised. This was never the intention. Stoke tensions in Northern Ireland to create some impetus to get the EU to agree to a nudging of the protocol towards something that might have been possible to agree after a few more years than the Prime Minister simply was willing to give or able to give. Because now it seems clear that David Frost may have a plan for circumventing the major sticking points of the protocol, which is, well, the main one really is the customs border in the Irish Sea. They just want that gone. He wants the EU to come to agreement on equivalence. That is, the EU and the UK jointly agree that their standards are equivalent, and so there's no real need for all this nonsense with the checks. So the checks themselves would be really light, so light as to be largely unnoticeable, and then, well, not everyone's happy, but most people are happy. Unfortunately, although the standards of goods produced in Britain absolutely are equivalent in practice right now, we're already changing the law to lower ours in general in preparation for imports from Australia and eventually the United States. Besides, it would mean the EU trusting the UK government to act in the interests of the single market when they have already demonstrated themselves to be fundamentally untrustworthy. But this equivalence idea is not in its simplest form, of course, going to get off the ground. You can't have a long-term solution based on equivalent standards when our standards are going to diverge very, very soon. But Frost also seems to be keen on a very Tory idea, really, that of passing the buck onto businesses. They like this. You may have noticed, dumping responsibility onto others. Now, Frost is supposed to be presenting a plan to Parliament next week, just before the summer recess. And It's rumoured, may not, but it's rumoured to include making it a criminal offence to move any goods to the Republic of Ireland from Northern Ireland. So the idea would be, as I understand it, well, look, we'll have this UK, they keep talking about the UK internal market. There is no UK internal market. There is the British internal market, and then there's the EU single market. Remember, although Northern Ireland isn't in the single market, in terms of goods passing into and out of it, it behaves as if it is. It's like an associate. But you certainly have very different customs rules in Northern Ireland as compared to Britain. So you cannot say we've got a UK single market, but that's what they talk about. So, any goods so what they want to do is just bring Northern Ireland back into the same customs alignment with Britain, and just basically say, look, we understand that will mean different customs arrangements in Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland, and we can't do physical checks at the border inside Ireland, of course not. So what we'll just do is just say to everyone, now, don't you be naughty and go sending any goods into the Republic of Ireland that shouldn't be going there. And if you do, you will be criminally liable. That seems to be the plan. There won't be checks, but if any breach is found, then maybe we will try and arrest the party responsible. If there's enough information for the police to go on. Maybe. Now, this seems to be a suitable point to point out what a Tory actually is. The name that we give to Conservative MPs. And it should be a term of a derogatory term, but they call themselves it. They call themselves Tories. It was actually derived from an Irish word meaning a brigand or a bandit. The Conservatives of Britain have always been as they are now, and viewed as they are now. They're just not hiding their banditry as well these days. It seems the EU are learning this now. Frankly, the protocol as it exists placed an awful lot of very misplaced trust in Boris Johnson's government. The idea that they'd be mad enough to agree to something that would place even more trust in them seems to me bizarre. But when it comes to politics, who knows? The problem with politicians, and it doesn't matter where those politicians are, is they don't always consider the full implications of what they're doing. It's all far too short term for my liking. Too easy for them to make decisions that are useful in the short term, maybe even easy in the short term, because they know that those who follow them will have to deal with the long-term impacts. What I'm saying is, I cannot know what the EU will or will not agree to. Will they stick to the protocol and not rewrite a single line? Or are they ready, well, not ready, but prepared at some point to be nudged slightly? Don't know, doubt it, but don't know. Maybe they'll go along with some lunatic plan that involves giving in to the blackmailers and hoping they won't come back with more demands later on. But that would seem odd. This idea that Frost may well present is based on a paper that was published in February. It spends more than half the time bashing the EU. But there are a few things worth looking at it. Now, when I say worth looking at, I don't mean for serious consideration. I just mean in terms of showing how it's totally unsuitable. At the top of page 10, it uses a couple of curious phrases. The first is, it works by inverting the usual approach to customs enforcement. It works by inverting the usual approach to customs enforcement. So you have this usual approach to customs enforcement, and they are saying that their plan inverts it. What does that mean? Translation, it's going to do the opposite of how customs enforcement is managed around the world. Does this sound like a credible plan to you? I'm going to need convincing. Next statement on the following paragraph. Normally, where there are two distinct customs territories, even between those with an FTA, customs border infrastructure is necessary. No. That's not normally the case at all. It isn't normal for that infrastructure to exist. It is always the case that that infrastructure exists. Normally the case means, well, it mostly is, but there are exceptions. There was nowhere in the world where this implied exception takes place. And there's not going to be once this is sorted either. Where it might appear to diverge from the rule is that our customs border is not between the UK and the EU when it comes to Ireland, but between Britain and Northern Ireland. But that is not a divergence from the rule because Northern Ireland remained aligned in terms of customs standards with the EU. So we have two different customs areas and we have a customs border between them. It's just that it's inside the UK. That's the simple point that these authors either don't understand or pretend not to understand for personal gain. You know, the language they use in their so-called solution could almost get you thinking that they're talking about a system that actually is in use somewhere in the world. They just want to modify it and use it for our purposes. But of course it's not. Their idea is to make new criminal offences in both the UK and the EU, but without the monitoring system that could enforce those laws. Now, in a serious report where there are proposals for a solution that is based on existing ones, it would reference them. In fact, in a serious report, if you were going to be modifying existing systems, you'd have a whole host of references. You know, if it was only normal for customs borders to exist, not all the time, they would say, for example, the border between Customs Area A and Customs Area B, which was set up in 1960, whatever. No, nothing of the sort. They are pulling these ideas out of their arse. Either they believe them, in which case they haven't really done any homework, or they're just grifters who need to produce something just about plausible enough when read by Conservatives to keep their funding going. But I'm certainly seeing a few reports that Frost may pursue this concept of mutual enforcement, as he's calling it. It's hard to see how the EU could go along with it. And if they don't, and of course I really can't see how they can, then we're going to be in a bit of a mess this autumn when more grace periods expire. Remember, for all the trouble there is with goods passing from Britain to Northern Ireland, it is nowhere near as much of a trade barrier as getting goods from Britain directly to EU countries. But it will get up there. It's on a ramp up there. You know, and after all, the main problem is if the government genuinely are pursuing proposals that mean reducing the need for checks at the Irish Sea border post, if they think they can achieve this, where is their motivation for building these facilities up, which is what they need to do? This is just going to lead to the checks becoming an even greater barrier to trade, which they see as politically useful for their cause. You know, and those barriers to trade are not going to be because of the protocol, but because we haven't implemented the protocol. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.